Good morning, Year 3. So it is Thursday, the 14th of January, and I'm going to talk you through your maths for today. So today we are going to be describing and thinking about 2D shapes. Okay, we're going to be using all of your learning from the week. So it's really important that you try and keep that refreshed in your mind today. So we're thinking about describing shapes, but in terms of the angles. Okay, so think about what's an acute angle, what's an obtuse angle. Can you remember those things? What do parallel lines look like? What do perpendicular lines look like? What's a horizontal line or a vertical line? We're going to need to use all of those words today. Okay, so if you're not sure, just pause the video and give yourself a little time to have a little recap. Okay, and we'll be thinking about them in a moment. Now, before we watch the video, I would like you to pause me in a second and either speak to somebody if you're working with somebody at home, or just have a think for yourself. What does 2D actually mean? When we're thinking about 2D shapes, what does the D stand for? What is a 2D shape? Can you explain? Just pause the video and have a little think. Okay, so 2D stands for two-dimensional. Okay, that means we're thinking about flat shapes. So here I've got an example of a circle, which is a 2D shape, and a square, which is a 2D shape. Okay, and you can see they're flat. So they are two-dimensional. Now over here, I can show you an example of a 3D shape. Okay, here's a cylinder, and it's, excuse me, a cylinder is a 3D shape. It's three-dimensional, it's not flat. Okay, now as you watch the video, there's a few other things I'd like you to think about. I'd like you to think about the beginning of the words that you hear, the names of the shapes, because that will explain, that will help you to remember how many sides each shape has. Now, there are some new words that you may not have heard before, because I'm sure you've learned a lot about 2D shapes in Year 1 and Year 2. This year, our new kind of mathematical words for Year 3, we're thinking about the word polygon. Okay, now a polygon, you'll hear it in the video, it's a shape, a 2D shape with 3 or more sides. So it's not a circle. Not a circle. A circle has got one side, so a circle is not an example of a polygon. We have got here a square with 4 sides. We've got a triangle with 3 sides, a rectangle, a pentagon. Any shape which has got 3 or more sides is a polygon as well. Okay, and you're also going to hear the word quadrilateral. Now, a quadrilateral is any 2D shape which has got 4 sides. Okay, so can you just have a little think? Can you think about an example of a quadrilateral? So any 2D shape with 4 sides. Okay, so you might have thought about a square, you might have thought about a rectangle, maybe you thought about a kite. Okay, there's some other answers as well, which we'll look at later in the video. So a quadrilateral is any 2D shape which has got 4 sides. Okay, so pause me, watch the video, okay, and I'll see you in a moment. The link is on the Year 3 page just under this video. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed that song to brighten up your Thursday morning. Now I'm going to share my screen so we can start looking at the slides together. Okay, so as you can see here, our learning objective is I can recognise and describe 2D shapes. That's what we're going to be doing today. Now you've watched the video, so let's move on. Have a look at these shapes, okay? I'd like you to pause me and I would like you to try and match up. You can do this by writing them down and drawing them if you'd like to, or you can just point at the screen and think about which of those labels belong to each shape, okay? Have a go at doing that. If there are any that you find a little bit tricky, that's fine. I imagine there are some that you'll be familiar with. There might be a couple that you're not sure about. That's okay, you can either leave those out or you could just have a guess and we'll look at them together in a moment, okay? Okay, so let's start. We're going to match them up. Hopefully you've had a chance to either talk about that, think about that, or write down some answers. So I'm going to start with the square. Okay, now the square is the yellow shape up here. It's got 4 equal length sides and it's got 4 right angles. That's how we can recognise a square. And now I'm going to move on to the rectangle. Again, a square and a rectangle are examples of quadrilaterals. They've both got 4 sides, haven't they? But a rectangle, it's got 4 right angles, but it's got 2 longer sides and 2 shorter sides. Now, let's go next for our triangle. 3 sides up here, okay? So a triangle has got 3 sides. Now, triangles can look different. Some have right angles, some don't. Some have equal length sides, some don't. But as long as it's got 3 sides, it's a triangle. Let's have a look next at our pentagon. So you heard in the video that means 5. So there we go. There is a pentagon, okay, with 5 sides. Now, a hexagon. Oh, sorry, I put that on the wrong one. I was just testing. Silly Mrs. Tiernan. That's our pentagon. I'm really sorry. There we go, with 5 sides. Okay. Now, I was just making sure you're all listening. Now, the hexagon. Now, the way I always remember a hexagon is that the word hexagon has got an X in it. Okay, as you can see down here, it's got an X in it. Which number has got an X in it? It's the number 6, isn't it? Okay. So, therefore, a hexagon has got 6 sides, and I always remember that the X is in hexagon and in the number 6. Okay, now I'm guessing that the next 3 perhaps you were less sure about, okay, and that's okay because they might be new learning for you. So we're going to start by thinking about the parallelogram. Well, the parallelogram is actually this shape here, the red shape, okay, or the orange shape. It has got 2 sets of parallel lines. As you can see, it's got a horizontal set and it's got a diagonal set as well. Okay, now every parallelogram will have 2 sets of parallel lines, sorry, but also it will have 4 acute angles. Okay, no, it won't. It will have 2 acute angles and 2 obtuse angles. That's exactly what it will have. Okay, so it's got no right angles. It's got 2 obtuse angles and 2 acute angles. And that's how you can recognize our parallelogram. That's what makes it different to some of the other shapes. Now, a rhombus, you might think, looks similar to a parallelogram. The difference with a rhombus is all of the sides are equal in length. Okay, so it's different to a square because it hasn't got 4 right angles. Okay, like the parallelogram, it's got 2 acute and 2 obtuse angles, and the opposite angles, okay, will always be the same. However, it has the sides are all the same length, and that's what makes it different to a parallelogram. Okay, you may recognize a rhombus if it was turned around with the point at the top and the bottom looking like a diamond. Okay, we call them rhombuses. Now we're in year 3. And finally, a trapezium. Okay, a trapezium up here, a quadrilateral, just like the parallelogram and the rhombus. It's got 4 sides, and it's just got 1 set of parallel sides. As you can see, the horizontal ones are parallel. They would keep going and going. They'd never meet. Okay, like a train track. They wouldn't come to a point. They would just keep staying the same distance away from each other as they continued. Okay, and that is your trapezium. So they are your 2D shapes. Now, you can always pause the video, or later when you're doing your work, you could always have this screen up paused if you wanted to help you. That might be something really useful. So let's have a look now at the quadrilaterals in a bit more detail. So we've already mentioned them, haven't we? They've got 4 sides. So we've got some examples here. We've got a rectangle, we've got a square, we've got a rhombus, which we've just spoken about, parallelogram, a trapezium. We didn't have a picture of this one, but a kite. So they are your main 6 quadrilaterals, okay? But it's any shape with 4 sides. Now, what I would like you to do is I would like you to pause the video and either talk to somebody. You might just say, can I just explain something to you for 30 seconds if people are busy at home, or again, just think by yourself, do it by yourself if you need to. I'd like you to pick one of those shapes and describe it. Okay, so you can start by describing how many sides it's got and how many vertices it's got. Now, vertices are the corners. Okay, so where 2 lines meet, they are vertices. So if I was describing the square, I would say it's got 4 vertices or 4 corners. Try and use the word vertices if you can. So you can start by saying how many sides and how many corners or vertices, but also see if you can use some of the words on the screen. So how many sets of parallel lines has it got? The square has got 2 sets of parallel lines, the horizontal ones and the vertical ones. Okay, horizontal and vertical. Think about, has it got any perpendicular lines? Those are lines that meet at a right angle. Okay, so I would say the square has definitely got perpendicular lines. How many horizontal sides are there? How many vertical sides? Remember, horizontal like the horizon from earlier in the week, and vertical top to bottom like that. Acute angle, so an angle less than 90 degrees. How many of those has it got? You have to get your angle meters out if you need to. An obtuse angle, how many obtuse angles has it got? So an angle bigger than a right angle, bigger than 90 degrees. And does it have any right angles? That's your L shape, That is exactly 90 degrees. Okay, so have a look, have a go. Can you just pick and describe one of those shapes, either to somebody or by yourself, using as many of those words as you can? Okay, so I'm now going to describe to you a shape. Okay, it's one of the shapes on the screen, and I want you to see if you can figure out which one it is. So it has got less sides than a pentagon. So think to yourself, how many sides has a pentagon got? It's got less than that. It's got one line of symmetry. Do you remember that we talked about symmetry yesterday? So symmetry is when, if you put a mirror in the middle of the shape, it would look exactly the same in the mirror as it does on your page or on the screen, because it's exactly the same on both sides. If you folded it, it would fold exactly in half and it would all match up because it's exactly the same on both sides, like a butterfly, for example. So it's got one line of symmetry, and it's got no acute angles. So it hasn't got any angles that are less than 90 degrees. Okay, can you find one of those shapes on the board? Okay, so I am thinking about a semicircle, which is the first shape. Can you see it's got less sides than a pentagon? It's got 2 sides, and a pentagon's got 5. It's got one line of symmetry, okay? Through the middle, if I folded it in half, it would be exactly the same on both sides. And it's got no acute angles, because those angles at the bottom are just about right angles, okay? Of course, here I've got my trapezium, and that's got 2 acute angles and 2 obtuse angles. And here I have got my parallelogram, which has got, again, 2 obtuse and 2 acute angles. Okay, and it's got less sides than a pentagon, so it can't be the pentagon. Okay, let's move on. So have a think now. Can you guess what I'm describing? So I've got no obtuse or acute angles. I have got an equal number of sides and right angles. And I have got 4 lines of symmetry. That's the tricky part, isn't it? Pause the video and have a think about those clues and see if you can guess my shape. Okay, so I could have been thinking about, couldn't I, for the first clue, no obtuse or acute angles, I could have been thinking about a square or a rectangle, okay, because they've both got 4 right angles, no obtuse and no acute angles. Now, they've also both got an equal number of sides and right angles. They've got 4 sides and 4 right angles. But the 4 lines of symmetry mean that I'm thinking about a square. Okay, so well done if you got that one correct, because the rectangle has got 2 lines of symmetry. It's got a horizontal line across and it's got a vertical line. But if I put a diagonal line across my rectangle, it wouldn't fold exactly. If I have my piece of paper, okay, it wouldn't fold exactly. If I have a rectangle, it would fold and it would be all like that. It wouldn't be exact. Whereas a square, I can have horizontal line of symmetry, a vertical line of symmetry, and 2 across diagonal lines, and they would fold and meet exactly. If you're not sure, have a go. Cut out a square and a rectangle and see how many lines of symmetry you can make. That could be quite interesting for you to do. Okay, let's move on. So it says here on the board, quadrilaterals do not have acute angles. Is that always, sometimes, or never? So this is for you to do a little bit of reasoning here. Okay, quadrilaterals are 4-sided shape. Do they have acute angles? Always, sometimes, or never? Pause the video and have a little think about that question. Okay, so the answer is sometimes. Okay, so if we have a look at them here, quadrilaterals, we can think of a square and a rectangle that don't have any acute angles. So that fits. But then if we think about our parallelogram, our trapezium, okay, our rhombus, they do have acute angles. So we've got sometimes should be our answer. Okay, and this is our last task before we move on to our worksheet. So it says here, explain what is similar about these shapes. So you've got a pentagon, a triangle, and a square. I would like you to pause the video one last time and describe the differences and the similarities, so things that are the same and things that are different, about those 3 shapes using as many of those maths words on the board as you can. So you might say they are different because maybe they've got different numbers of sides. And you might say they are similar because or you might say the pentagon and the triangle are similar because they don't include any right angles, for example. Okay, so have a little pause, have a little go at thinking about what's the same about those shapes to each other and what's different. Okay, good. So let's have a little look at our sheet. Okay, so the first thing we'd like you to do is label the shapes on the board. Okay, remember, if you need to go back through the video, through the slides to have a look to help you, that is fine. So label the shapes on the board or the worksheet. If you're not able to print out your worksheet, don't worry about that. You can just write your answers on a piece of paper. And then underneath that, we'd like you to draw the shapes below. So a triangle with a right angle in it, so with an L shape 90 degrees in it, and a pentagon. Now, it's really important that you use a ruler. So it might be that you need to pause the video after this and you need to go and find yourself a ruler or something with a very straight edge around your house. Okay, so that's your do it. Now you'll twist it. Quadrilaterals have 4 right angles, always, sometimes, never. So similar to what we've just looked at during the input, slightly different. I'd like to explain your answer and draw shapes to prove it. And remember again to use a ruler. And you'll solve it, okay? To draw at least one shape in each section of the diagram. So we would like to see, so you can see this is called a Venn diagram. On the side, it says a 4-sided and not 4-sided. And along the top, at least one right angle and no right angles. So if you've got a shape with at least one right angle, which means one or more right angles, and it's got 4 sides, you would be drawing it in this box here, okay? If you've got a 4-sided shape with no right angles, you would be drawing it in this box here. Yeah? If it's not got 4 sides and it's got 1 or more right angles, in here. And if it's got no right angles and not 4 sides, it would go in here. So it's going to take a little bit of thinking about. Okay? When you have done that, if you still want to do something else, you could just play some Guess My Shape. Okay, that could be with someone at home, or perhaps you could arrange to Zoom one of your classmates and you can both play Guess My Shape together. So you can describe a shape and see if they can guess what it is. Okay, I hope that's all clear. That's quite a lot of information about 2D shapes. But there was quite a lot to talk about, so I hope that's helpful. I hope you enjoy your maths today. Remember to check the answer sheet on the web page. There's always answer sheets. I think for today there were some answers which could be different depending on, you could still be correct and it might not be on the sheet, so you can always email your teacher if you'd like us to check. But yes, good luck. Now tomorrow we're having a slightly different maths lesson. We're going to be going on a shape hunt. There is a video and there is a worksheet, but it's not a do it, twist it, solve it one. It's a slightly different one. And I have said on the worksheet for tomorrow that you might want to do it around your house. That's fine, and I'll explain it all tomorrow, but I'm just giving you a little bit of warning, because the other option is you might want to do it when you're out on a walk. So you might just want to time your maths lesson for when perhaps you're going out with your family, or you could do it in your garden. So I'll explain more in the video tomorrow, okay? But we are going on a shape hunt to end our week of home learning for maths this week, okay? Have a great Thursday, everybody. Bye.